Good morning, Professor Griffin, and thank you very much for accepting this invitation to talk with us here at Deusto University about business ethics. My name is Ricardo Aguado, and I am Associate Professor of Microeconomics and Head of the Economics Area at Deusto Business School, University of Deusto. Dr. Jennifer Griffin is Professor of Business Ethics and Professor of Strategy at Loyola University Chicago's Quinlan School of Business, Chicago, Illinois, engaged at all levels of learning, executive, doctoral, graduate, and undergraduate, including online and experiential study abroad courses. Professor Griffin examines how organizations continuously co-create value. Annually, she leads corporate strategy, social impact, and strategy-oriented CSR workshops for Australian, Chilean, and US executives, as well as periodically in Brazil, India, and Lebanon. I would like to add that Loyola University Chicago is also a Jesuit university, so both universities, Deusto and Loyola Chicago, are linked by the same global mission and ultimate goals. So, Professor Griffin, thank you very much for being here. We are in the last day of the ISBEE Congress, which is focused on business ethics and more precisely in the need of reinventing globalization. In which ways do you think it is necessary to reinvent globalization?
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here, and it's been just a fabulous experience here at ISBEE at the 7th Congress. It is incredibly enlightening to hear from so many different scholars from around the world, to hear their different views on globalization. So this question about how might we reinvent or reimagine globalization, I think has a lot of interest as well as importance to us, both as Jesuit universities, but also as us as individuals. And so within that Jesuit system, as you well know, it's about care for the whole person. But it's also care for the institution. And so as we care for the individual and how those different individuals might be very different in very different global spaces, it's still, globalization is still very much about the person. And so that idea that it might be a global company, but it's run by individuals. And so that idea that there are multiple globalizations that we've heard about from Professor Danny from Harvard Business School, or from Harvard University at the Kennedy School. He was looking at different types of globalization. And so I think this idea of a hyper-local, very regional, very like the Basque Country. It's beautiful here. And so globalization is as much about a strong local identity built around individuals and families and ties, as it is about large corporations. So putting the people first and center, putting the individual in service of, well, having the corporation in service of the individual and or the country well-being.
So it's a change in the focus.
Yes.
Many corporations now in Europe and also in the US are developing and reinforcing their CSR departments, trying to engage employees in projects that are beneficial for the common good of society. What do you think about this trend?
I think having a focus on society and the benefits to society, whether it's called social impact, whether it's called social responsibility, is fabulous. And I think that's absolutely the way to go. How we got away from that, I'm not quite so sure. But the idea that the impact, the beneficiaries, the ultimate not input, throughput, output, outcome impact, but the ultimate impact being about individuals, communities, neighbors, and society is appropriate. Now come back to your question about corporate social responsibility with employees. If you're looking at corporate social responsibility, the first place to start is with your employees. Because if you are to show a duty or an obligation or a responsibility to others, it's, you might as well start with your employees, because if you're saying you're doing things and they're not your ambassadors, then it rings sort of hollow. But for me, that's a start. And so it's a start to think about, okay, how is it that in the workplace you treat your employees? How do you hire them? How do you promote them? How do you develop them? How do you have them flourish with hegemonia? How is it that you might engage their families or allow for familial ties or familial involvement, whether it's hospitals or parents and elder care or child care. How does that tie into the day-to-day policies? But that's employee base. And then you look at the products. And so when you are sourcing and sorting out different vendors, are you also looking to see if they are treating their employees well? And then is that cascading on down the value chain, both to the original supplier, but also all the way up to the distributor? And that's where I think that local globalization or that local identity, that hyper-localness is easier and also more innovative, and will be more nimble in demonstrating that it is treating individuals with dignity and respect, which comes back to the Jesuit values of cura personalis. So it's taking care of individuals, but you can take care of them through the workplace and the hiring. You can take care of them through the contracts that you have with suppliers and retail. You can take care of them through being a spokesperson as an organization. And standing up for different ideas or standing up for different policies, what we do and what we do not do, and what we'll agree to do and what we won't do. So being that convening place.
And my next question is about how can we accompany corporations in this process from academia, from business schools? How can we help corporations to be more active in this process?
I love the way that you're using the word to accompany, because as you know, that's very Jesuit. It is to accompany others. And so to be of service to others. And so in part that means going to them.
Yes.
And finding them where they are at. Whether and the them it might be the employees and their families. It might be the vendors and the contractors. It might be your customers. But it's also certainly very much your community. And so how is it that you are benefiting them? You might say as an organization that you are benefiting them, but are you truly? And we as academics need to go beyond just the focus on corporations, but look at the different neighborhoods in the communities, look at the marginalized groups, look at the informal sector. I mean, I'm looking out on the Basque Country and it's absolutely fabulous here. But lots of other places of the world are not as, do not have the gifts that have been stowed here.
Okay.
And so there are many people that are without health care or without access to finance that are not even recognized, that might have lots of inequities because of wage or gender or caste or something like that. And so how is it that we as academics can begin to focus on or theorize about what are the duties towards or with them? You're a professor of microeconomics.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at sustainability,
we are yes. We are shifting also at Deusto Business School, and now sustainability is a core element for us in the school. So
let me switch it back to you though. How is it then that, so yesterday we had a panel with Anne Rosenberg from UN Women's, and she was talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, looking at inclusion and belonging, and how that might tie to sustainability in the climate space. And so now, as you are working, I would imagine perhaps, or maybe some of your colleagues are, on economics and finance for a sustainable world. How has that changed your work?
Well, as you said before, now we try to identify the value that each corporation is creating in all stakeholders. So we say, well, employees, how is this corporation creating value for them? Or customers, the same. Or we take each stakeholder and we try to measure the value that the corporation is creating for them. Not only the economic value, but also the social value. So we are starting with a new methodology to explore this and trying to monetize the value, although it's not only economic value. We are exploring emotional value, social value, and other kinds of value. And we are still in this exploratory phase, but we are moving towards that. So it's a more inclusive understanding of the role of corporations in society.
And that ties into some of the new work that I'm hearing is being done also on impact weighted accounting.
Yeah,
even.
that's it.
And so you're looking at not just the number that are hired, but how is that representative of the community? Is the diversity or the inclusion representative of the community? Are the living wages representative of the community above or below?
That's very exploratory. I mean, the ideas you are telling me are not still fully developed in our analysis. We are talking with other colleagues, new colleagues, in order to gather experience from them and try to apply it to our own research. So in a certain way, if we want to take sustainability into account, we have to broaden our scope and include more researchers from different areas into our own research.
And I think that's the key of a Jesuit university, not only to accompany others, but to inspire others to do more than what we can do individually.
I would like to continue with a new question. In my view, and that's my view, the role of business schools is fundamental in order to teach future and present managers values associated with sustainability, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the principles for responsible management education.
That's right.
Considering your experience in teaching, how can we inspire in our business schools the new generation of business leaders so that corporations could be more responsible, more sustainable, and more aligned with social needs? How can we inspire them?
In part, like we were just saying, admitting that this is exploratory, admitting this is experimental, to admit and to encourage them to join us in the conversation, but allowing for those conversations to occur.
Okay.
And to say that we don't know, but we would like to work with you to sort it out and work with others around the world. So it's that inspiration as well as to accompany, but looking at the entire person with Cura Personalis.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Griffin, for sharing with us your time and your knowledge. We all have learned a lot from this conversation, and thank you, and good luck with all your research. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much appreciate it.